Yeah, I should have done. Thank you all for joining us. And we're very sorry for the delay because our guest was in Congress, as I mentioned previously. I'm Yerivan Saeed, a Barzani scholar in residence and also the director of the Global Kurdish Initiative for Peace here at the School of International Service at the American University in Washington, D.C. It's really my great honor to welcome all of you to our event titled Shaping the Future U.S., Kurdistan, and Iraq relations under the new administration. One might have hoped that the President Donald Trump's second term would have taken a different course, but the same themes of the first term, in my view, multiplied by the factor of 10 or probably 100, still persists. America first approach, nationalism, and predictable and often confrontational foreign policy is at the front of his agenda. Uncertainty remains the hallmark of his administration, putting global alliances, trade, security under serious strain. For sovereign nations, the next 4 years will be challenging. It has already proven to be very, very challenging, even for the US neighbors like Canada and Mexico. So if this is the case, it is certain for an autonomous region like the Kurdistan region, the stake is much higher. Situated in one of the world's most treacherous geopolitical location in the world, Kurdistan faces intense pressure on multiple fronts, including the neighboring countries. As we are speaking, Kurdistan is grappling with severe economic, financial, political, and social problems or crisis. The Iraqi government's relentless financial, legal, political attacks continue on the Kurdistan region. Baghdad has withheld Kurdistan's share of federal budget for a decade now and halted oil exportations since the March of 2023. So we are almost in 2 years. The federal government has also weaponized the federal court to cut down Kurdistan region's constitutional autonomous powers. The Kurdish delegations are in Baghdad almost bi-weekly, if not weekly, trying to address these issues and discuss it with federal bureaucrats. However, despite repeated promises of resolution, the cycle continues with no lasting progress. The ultimate price continues to be paid by ordinary Kurdish citizens of Iraq. And that means the KRG or the Kurdistan Regional Government not being able to pay the salary on time. To be clear, Baghdad is not solely responsible for Kurdistan's difficulties. The region faces deep internal divisions, and the time factionalism has allowed Baghdad to exploit its weakness. However, this does not absolve Baghdad of its responsibility. Rather than taking advantage of Kurdistan's struggle, you should work toward a solution, where scientists have far more to win through cooperation than confrontation. And the previous Biden administration, also the other administration, Washington, has tried to solve and address these outstanding political, economic, budget, and also territorial issues between Baghdad and Erbil, but the Kurdish leadership has been quite frustrated, especially with the last administration. The question now is, given Trump's approach to foreign policy and given all the other present priority for this administration, should we expect a different U.S. role this time? Will Washington use its influence to help resolve these long-standing issues, or will Kurdistan continue to be left alone to navigate these challenges. Or the situation will get worse if President Trump were to decide to withdraw the US troops from Iraq. To discuss these pressing issues, I am really honored to welcome our very distinguished guest, Dr. Heman Haurami. Dr. Heman Bakhervi Sarchao, it's really an honor to welcome you here at the School of International Service at the American University. Let me give a little bit background about Dr. Haurami. He's a prominent figure in the Kurdistan, political figure in the Kurdistan Democratic Party, the KDP, having served in various roles, including the head of the party's foreign relations. He led the KDP in 2018 to victory in the 2018 election to victory, and then he was elected as the deputy Speaker of Parliament for the Kurdistan region. And also he's an accomplished author. He has written 8 books, if I'm not mistaken. And also you write poetry, am I right? No? Yes, I was told, maybe I was given. Okay, yes. I was fed misinformation. So we're in the age of misinformation and disinformation. So no surprise there. So yes. But on a serious note, what really stands out for me for Dr. Horami that he built his success through hard work, coming out from my hometown, Halabja. So you can say I'm very biased. He's from Halabja, I'm from Halabja too. Okay, he did not receive this position, he earned them. His dedication and talent were recognized by those above him who saw his talent and valued and appreciated his contribution. In fact, I saw Dr. Haurami in 1994 on Halabja's Main Street, just by his house. But he never saw me at that time. A friend pointed him out saying, "Do you see that guy?" I remember that. He said, his name is Heman, and he speaks English. At that time, I was 14 years old, middle schooler, and Dr. Horami was 18. And yes, and also he was a senior. I understand that, today speaking English is not a big deal or is not, remarkable, may not seem really remarkable, but at that time, just, consider being in a town that had barely survived Iraq's genocide, where nearly every house was destroyed, schools were ruined. There was no books, blackboards, and there was no electricity. So finding someone so young who spoke English was extraordinary. So that really became some sort of inspiration subconsciously. By the time I was a senior in high school, I was also able to speak English. So we're all self-learners of English. That's why I have a bad accent, by the way. So I'm going to sit with Dr. Harami. We're going to have a conversation about, the issues that I talked about, but please stay with us. We're going to provide food, and that includes kebab. The Kurdish program here at the SIS is really known for providing the best food in the history of Washington, D.C. Don't go away. I'm serious about that. Yeah, everyone is very jealous about that. So please stay with us. And also after my questions, I will open the floor for Q&A. Thank you. Horami, so you have been in Washington, D.C. for a week. You had a busy schedule. You have been, uh, juggling right and left, going to Congress. You have met with lawmakers, policymakers, people, State Department, people probably at the White House, Trump officials, at least senior advisors, I guess, to the Middle East. So can you please tell us what they think about the Middle East? What is the U.S. foreign policy towards the Middle East? What can we expect it for the next 4 years? Need to turn on, please.
Yeah. First of all, thank you so much for your time and for your patience. Sorry for being late for 7 minutes, I think, because of the traffic and because of the continuation of the meeting at the Congress. I really appreciate this opportunity, and thank you, Dr. Yerivan, for your kind remarks. Well, I can't speak on their behalf about what their policies is on the Middle East, but I can certainly talk about what we are expecting from that foreign policy, and I am delighted to discuss part of it. We had a very important meeting so far. We just had some meeting at the State Department with Congress. I also met with some advisors, and we're going to meet also with some advisors at the White House soon as well, and meeting with some think tankers in Washington as well. So from our perspective, what Kurdistan wants in this relationship with the new administration, that's the most important thing as part of our goal in this visit. I was asked by a senior diplomat here in Washington what Kurdistan wants from Trump administration. And my answer was, make Kurdistan great again. And they said, how? Yeah, I said, just make Kurdistan great again. That's exactly what we want to see from the new administration, because from our perspective, the whole Middle East is going through a very tectonic shift, which is full of uncertainties and full of ambiguities, full of volatilities, and full of uncertainties as well. So in dealing with that, what we mean by it's going through a tectonic shift? The Middle East that we knew previously from the post-Ottoman era, that was a state-centric order system in the Middle East, is over. Nowadays, the state-centric order in the Middle East is not a viable provider of stability, security, and prosperity in the Middle East. And now what you have, it's a transitional period from a state-centric Middle East order to a non-state-centric Middle East order, which is shaping new events on the ground. And that's why, for example, nowadays, out of 480-something armed groups that they are governing populated spaces worldwide, around 200 million peoples are governed by armed groups worldwide. We have 284 armed groups ruling population in the entire Middle East. So it means that the states are not the sole responsible of providing security, stability, governance, and financial support, providing all kinds of the governance in the area. From this perspective, also the alliances are shifting in the Middle East, and it's in the continuous process of shifting in the Middle East. So from our perspective, if we zoom into the Middle East, we do believe that the Kurdistan region proved to be a security provider when it came to the fight of ISIS. For example, the Peshmerga forces in Kurdistan region and the Kurdish fighters in Syria were the main fighters to defeat ISIS, both territorially, geographically, and also providing stability for the different minorities that we have in the region. So from this perspective, when it came, we all heard about this new Secretary of State's confirmation hearing, when he outlined 3 important concepts in assessing and gauging the foreign policy when it comes to what makes the United States secure, what makes the United States stable, and what makes the United States more prosperous. We do believe that the Kurdistan region also looks at the US foreign policy in dealing with the Middle East, what makes Kurdistan is more secure, what makes more Kurdistan is more stable, and what makes Kurdistan more prosperous. So in that regard, definitely we do believe that we have a lot of shared values, shared interests, and I do think that it's a bipartisan issue in Washington when it comes to Kurdistan region, and we do hope to remain it as a bipartisan issue in Kurdistan region. So for that, our message is that we need United States to empower Kurdistan as it is genuine partner in the Middle East, because Kurdistan region is a very important geopolitically located. It's not only about the Kurdistan region, it's about the voice of moderation toward this sectarian division that we have in Iraq. It's a voice of moderation in dealing with the non-Muslims in Iraq as well. Just for the information of the audience here, out of 350,000 Christians in all of Iraq, now there are about 320,000 of them, they live in Kurdistan region. And there is a reason for that. Why? Because they think that they are more secure in Kurdistan region, that they are recognized as the citizen of Kurdistan region, that for every 213 mosques that we have a church as well, and there's a freedom of religions in Kurdistan region, and we needed to protect it in that regard as well. Definitely, we are not here to ask, and we never ask for having the US boots on the ground in Kurdistan region. We are here to ask for better military support. And that's why we do think that the previous one Iraq policy is not a viable, successful policy. Maybe one Iraq, two policies are very important for the Kurdistan region. So our message is that Kurdistan is a true partner. We are proud of this relationship with the United States. We have also paid the price for the relationship with the United States, but we are proud of paying that price because we do believe that that was in the best interest of the Kurdistani people and in the best interest of the stability in the region. So we do hope that we will continue on these efforts, and there are certain issues that will come up, especially in the upcoming NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, and the share of the Peshmerga forces. We do hope that there will be an increase for the Peshmergas and the allocation more for supporting all the pillars that we have, because it will be less costly for the United States to empower their true partners in the region than having their boots on the ground and fighting the fight of terrorism and instability by themselves. So we do hope to work continuously, and we need more engagement from the new administration, because let's be clear, when was the last time when the Secretary of State was in Baghdad and Erbil? January 2019. So we need Iraq to come back and the stability in the area to the radar of Washington.
Thank you. So you covered a lot to.
So the questions, if
Yes, I think a lot of impact probably I'll press you on some of the issues,
Please.
especially you. You talked about, the Secretary of State. He outlined, three really rules about how the U.S. wants to engage with its partners or with any country in the world. So, what do you think Kurdistan can provide? Will be able to engage with the U.S.
A lot.
Especially the Kurdistan region that struggles internally. It has problems with Baghdad, with some of the neighboring countries. So can you shed light on this?
The stability of Iraq, the adherence to the constitution, because the United States has really invested a lot in life and treasure. In Iraq, for example, 4,000 US soldiers almost killed. But the question is, none of them were killed in the Kurdistan region, because Kurdistan region is very receptive to US forces, to US citizens, to US government. So stability in Iraq, because Iraqi stability will have its own spillover of stability in the region, and lack of stability in Iraq also, it will have its negative impact on the regional stability as well. So we do believe that adherence to constitution in Iraq, adherence to the Iraq's foreign policy and Iraq's activity in the entire Middle East, that will based on the sovereignty and the interest of the Federal Republic of Iraq, that will be in the best interest for the stability for Kurdistan region and for the United States. So this is one of the issues that the Kurdistan and the United States can engage more together for that stability in Iraq. For example, I have to be very open. When the HTS in Syria was on the march to Damascus, there were some thinking in Baghdad's government to send Iraqi army and some militias into Syria to protect Damascus from the HTS. So we played a very, very important role for Iraq not to make that strategic mistake and to get itself in this volatile situation that will go on in Syria. So I do believe that kind of Kurdistan's role in providing the voice of wisdom for a foreign policy in Iraq that will be in the best interest of the stability in the region, not to be there as a proxy elements for the other regional competitions. I don't want to mention names here, but it's very, very important for Kurdistan region. Another important issue, we need the United States support for the strategic reform that the KRG under the leadership of Prime Minister Masroor Barzani has undergone to continue this kinds of the support for this reform process, for providing better governance and for the reform for economic developments, for energy security, for Kurdistan is to resume its oil industry and the pumping of oil. So there, and also when it comes to the Syrian developments in Syria, the close coordination between the United States and Kurdistan region to work both together on the Kurdish unity between the Kurdish National Council and the SDF, and with the latest visit by General Mazloum Abdi into Erbil, and also for the regional stability in dealing with the Kurdish Peace Initiative in Turkey, and also for a lot of things that we can share, for example, for counterterrorism and providing the more support for all the counterterrorism efforts that we have in the region.
Thank you. How worried you are if President Trump would decide to withdraw U.S. forces from Iraq or Syria, and especially if it does it from Syria, how that would impact Kurdistan region stability?
We have been very clear from early on that there must be a logic why you withdraw this force. If you withdraw it, do you think that the replacements or the forces there are capable, are competent, to have the intentions, have the will to fill in those gaps that you are leaving behind? So our argument, even in 2011, that Iraq, neither militarily nor security-wise, was ready enough to fill in the gap if the US forces will leave Iraq. And it came out true, because in 2011, when the US forces left Iraq, after 2-3 years, we had ISIS, because Iraq, neither militarily nor security-wise, nor governance-wise, was ready to fill in for that gap that US is going to leave behind. So right now, even we do believe, and from early on, when this talk were in Baghdad, even to be frank, we as the Kurdistan regional government, as the Kurdistan leadership, we paid the price that in Baghdad we have been hopeful that leaving Iraq, withdrawing forces from Iraq without having a better alternative, it's going to create bigger problem in Iraq. And then we have been punished by regional countries for taking that stance. But now, with this new developments in Syria, with the opportunity for terrorism, especially for ISIS, to resurrect in Syria and in Iraq, we don't think withdrawing forces either in Iraq or in Syria in this context, in this timing, will be a wise move to make.
Thank you. I want to move to one very important, really, element of the U.S. foreign policy, which is the U.S. aid, foreign aid. You and me grew up during, conflict, civil war, and post-conflict, and we saw in firsthand how important it is for the U.S. aid and also U.S. foreign aid in helping people like us to rebuild in 1990s. And now everything has been put on freeze. In the Kurdistan region, hundreds of people have been unemployed, and also that has impacted actually, refugees or IDPs in the Kurdistan region, also in Syria as well. How that will impact it, especially, resurgence of ISIS and also Islamic extremism in the Kurdistan region, also the broader Middle East.
Well, to be very honest with you, we haven't had that much from that USAID programs when it came to the IDPs and the refugees in Kurdistan region, refugees from Syria or IDPs from the other displaced areas. Most of the support went to Baghdad and through other places. And we don't want to jump into the politics in Washington, local politics on that, but do we believe that US can make a lot? And through the support, especially through bringing more direct investment into Kurdistan region and to the areas because like many other places in the Middle East, we have one of the biggest challenges in Kurdistan region. In order to keep unemployment rate under 7% in Kurdistan region, we have to create 80,000 jobs per year. and which is a very, very, very difficult things to do because of this situation with Baghdad, because of the lack of flow of budget from Baghdad. And unfortunately, Baghdad, the Sudanese government in the last 2 years, he has employed more than 1 million people from the public sector, and zero of it was for the Kurdistan region, zero of it. So, and we in the Kurdistan region, we cannot make that kinds of the job opportunities in the public sector, so we have to make it in the private sector. And in order to make it in the private sector, you have to go through a very robust reform processes, which the ninth cabinet under the leadership of Mr. Masroor Barzani was doing. So that's why making sure that to provide that environment for more US involvement, for more foreign direct investment, for creating such kinds of the permissive environment will be a more strategic answer than providing aid.
Thank you. Speaking of Erbil-Baghdad relationship, so there are lots of outstanding issues. At the forefront of them is oil or energy and also budget issue. So why there has not been permanent solution for these issues, why the Kurdistan region still continues to suffer from lack of budget from the federal government, even though there has been lots of diplomatic delegations to Baghdad and they've been trying to resolve it, but so far we don't see any solution for that. What are the real issues?
The real issues is the culture of centralism in Baghdad and lack of implementation of federalism and constitution. That is the main source of it. And that culture of centralization and don't respect for example, if you go to the Iraqi constitution, we have 55 articles, which is the guarantor of federalism and the division of power and division of resources in Iraq have been either violated or not been implemented. We have 124 outstanding issues with Baghdad relates to the lack of implementing the federalism that was stipulated in the constitution. And to be honest, also, they don't want to see these developments in Kurdistan regions. If you look at all the human development indexes, the three provinces in Kurdistan, like Duhok, Erbil, Suleimania, and Halabja, our both hometowns, it's very different from the other parts of Iraq. So they wanted to withhold Kurdistan from this development that we have, and for the lack of the share that we have in the Iraqi government and in the Iraqi budget. And it's not only about that. Even the concept of consensus in Iraq has been violated. The concept of balanced representation in Iraq has been violated. Just to give a small example, in the Iraqi Ministry of Defense, we have 224 general directorate and sub-directorates. Zero of them are from Kurdistan region. Right, we are at least 17% of the Iraq's population as the Kurds in Iraq. How many percentage of Iraqi army is from Kurdistan? 1%, only 1%. How many percent within the senior Iraqi leadership military? Zero. How many division commanders, Kurds or Sunnis? Either I think 1 or 2, and there are Sunnis from the other. None of the Kurds are in the division. So it has been a systematic move to regress and to push back the Kurdistan's developments and to keep Kurdistan at bay from their mentality and to look at Kurdistan like one of the provinces from the south. And that's why when we have these issues, it's really a part of that culture that Iraq has lost its sense of federalism and going back to centralization. And it's not only the issue with Kurdistan region. Look at the grievances from even some of the southern provinces in Iraq. We have the same, look at what the Sunnis are saying in Mosul, in Ramadi, in Tikrit, the Sunni areas. They have the same kinds of the grievances that we have.
Thank you. I just want to add, something really important. I don't want people to think that, what Dr. Oran says have no basis, but I was in Kurdistan region the whole summer last year. I was doing my research. I visited the whole 4 provinces in the Kurdistan region. I visit farmers. I visit, I talked to lots of people about what you call it, about regressing development in the Kurdistan region. I'm writing my paper about what I call the development process. It is really a very systematic approach by the Iraqi government trying to regress the Kurdistan region's development. Very, very systematic. It is being done politically, economically, and also legally. Like Kurdistan region has lots of, for example, poultry. They have been able, Kurdistan region produces 1 billion eggs daily For example, the Iraqi market is not open for the Kurdish products, for Kurdish grain, for Kurdish produces,
They
for
make
Kurdish,
tariffs
like, manufacturing things. Nothing, everything but really been prevented. So while everything from the neighboring countries are okay to go to the rest of the Iraqi market. So you can see the process, the policy is just not about oil. It's not just about really budget. It's about everything else. They just try to stop Kurdistan region's development.
Yep.
So I want to move to Kurdistan region's security. We see from time to time that militia groups are targeting Kurdistan region's infrastructure, especially energy. Where these attacks are coming from, and why the Iraqi government has not been able to put an end to these attacks?
Well, again, that goes back to the systemic and structural issues that Iraq is suffering from the lack of that abiding by the constitution. For example, if you look at the current budget in Iraq that was passed in parliament, the budget that was allocated for the militia groups, it's more than altogether was allocated for Iraqi security services, counterterrorism. And during these policies of hiring more than 1 million people, look at the hundreds of thousands of people were hired for these militia groups that we have. So you have a parallel state, unfortunately, that is not abiding by the federal government's policies, and some they believe that the Kurdistan's energy development is not in the best interest of their own people, of their own groups. That's why between now and then they are targeting the strategic infrastructures of the energy in Kurdistan region.
Yeah, it was interesting, like the moment the Iraqi parliament started the amendment for the Iraqi budget in order to, pay the cost of protection and also transportation for the Kurdistan region from $6 to $16. They target the Hormuz gas field in the Kurdistan region. Are you hopeful that there will be an exportation of the Kurdistan region's oil anytime soon?
Well, very frankly, from the Kurdistan region's perspective, what Baghdad has done in terms of the weaponization of the federal court by passing, federal court's decrees to annul the Kurdistan's oil and hydrocarbon law of 2007. That's also another constitutional violations to the Kurdistan region's principles of federalism that has been stipulated in the constitution. So that should have not been there at first in the place. But now, after this amendment, which was also a very long story, I don't like to go into the details, but we have been, as the KRG, we have been ready from day one to re-export the Kurdistan's oil. So now it depends on the Iraqi government, because I heard also that Turkey is ready. So it depends really of the Iraqi Ministry of Oil technically to restart the pumping of the Kurdistan's oil. But from the Kurdistan's perspective, nothing can hinder our readiness to restart the pumping of oil.
As I mentioned in my introduction notes, there was also frustration by the Kurdish leadership about the previous administration for not being proactive in helping mediating between Erbil and Baghdad in resolving these issues that we have been talking about. What role the US, do you think, or the current administration can play, or do you think they are going to play in bringing Erbil and Baghdad closer together?
Well, definitely, the United States can play a very, very important role, and we're expecting that important role to be played because, again, the legacy of the United States in Iraq and spending that much of time and treasure and life and blood, we don't want that to go in vain. So it's very, very important for the United States to re-engage with Baghdad and Erbil as that one Iraq and two policies in order to strengthen the infrastructure both in both areas to make, for example, Iraq is losing a lot by not having a better relationship with Kurdistan to jointly develop the energy resources in the other parts of Iraq. And Iraq is losing a lot. For example, Iraq, through the weaponization of the federal court, imagine, ladies and gentlemen, in order to deny Kurdistan receive at least $10 billion out of the selling of oil by the Kurdistan region in the last 2 years, Iraq itself lost $23 billion. So they lost $23 billion in order to make Kurdistan lose $10 billion by not allowing the the Kurdistan's flow of 500,000 barrels of oil per day. So for 2 years, they put this on hold. And we were getting only about $10 billion annually from the selling of that. But the Iraq lost $23 billion in order just to cause Kurdistan lose $10 billion, which is not a logical thing to do. So that's why we need more active re-engagement from the United States, from the Trump administration to help both Iraq and Kurdistan, because we are not looking at the win-lose relationship with Baghdad. We do believe that a win-win relationship with Baghdad, a win-win for Kurdistan region and Baghdad, and win for the U.S. economy and for U.S. companies, because we don't forget that there are some American oil companies investing, and U.S. itself has invested approximately about $300 million in this Cormor field for the natural gas that we mentioned, because Iraq needs a lot of it.
Thank you. I would like to zoom in for local politics in the Kurdistan region. So the Kurdistan region had an election in October. The KDP won. It came out top, but so far no no government formation because of how the seats have been distributed, and obviously you need to ally with someone to join you, but so far it has not happened. Can you give us where we are with government formation?
Well, one of the other things that we as Kurdistan region are really very, very proud of is the successful elections that we had in Kurdistan in October, because it's not a common issue in the Middle East to see democracy and elections with 73% participation from all the voters in Kurdistan. It's the turnout was very, very high. So that's if that gives you something, it gives you that the political participation, the political maturity that through elections is there in Kurdistan region. So that's the beacon of democracy that also, when we say the United States needs to invest more in that kinds of the region, that is what we have. In the last Iraqi parliament election that was in October 2021, according to IHAC, Iraqi High Election Commission, the turnout in Iraq, in some areas, it was below 20%. So, but you have the 73% of the turnout in Kurdistan region. Really, that's something that we all, as the Kurdistani people, are very proud of. Of course, after election, there is an important negotiation process between KDP, my party, as the winning party, and PUK, which came second. There has been a lot of good meetings. I can say enough about it that the technical talks about preparing a draft is done, and we are very close, 90 to 95%. Have this. We are on the same sheet on music on some of this technicalities when it comes to this political agreement. It's 9-section draft paper that has been prepared. So then both high delegations supposed to meet either today, but because of a visit by Prime Minister to United Arab Emirates, along with the Deputy Prime Minister, they went together for this World Governance Summit. So that meeting is postponed for either in the coming days. So there will be an important meeting in this week. So, and we do hope that that draft political agreement will be supported and agreed upon by both politburos of both KDP and PUK. Then start on the discussions on the positions in the KRG as well. But definitely, my party is ready, and under a direction from President Masoud Barzani that we should have one government, one parliament, and one Peshmerga forces, because institution building is the source of strength for Kurdistan regions, for the resiliency of Kurdistan region among this turbulence that we are living in the Middle East.
Thank you. You mentioned like high turnout. That surprised many people, including myself. Why do you think we had such a high turnout despite all the disappointment of voters and disillusionment?
Well, it was a very, all elections are important. I remember this is maybe 5th, 6th elections that I participated. Every time we say, oh, this election is much more important, so let's work on it. But to be frank, many were preparing to say farewell, goodbye to KDP. But we were preparing a very good plan for them. So that's why I within the KDP, I was responsible for the organizational department. So we had a program of going voter by voter in Kurdistan regions, to target voter by voter, especially the sympathizers with us. And the competition, from the opposition party, from the UK, from the others also was very tense. And this was an overdue elections because we supposed to have this election 2 years before that time. And again, this is a sign of maturity, political maturity in Kurdistan region, that people want through ballot boxes to express their preferences, which we do believe that's a very, very important pillar for the stability in the area.
Thank you. One final question, and then I'll open for the floor. The State Department has one advisory travel policy for the whole Iraq. That includes the Kurdistan region. And for example, if I want to bring students to the Kurdistan region, I cannot, obviously, because insurance will not cover them, the university will not allow them, and that will make a really life difficult for not for students, for faculty, but also for the business as well. So what's your advice for the new administration? Do you think they should have a different travel advisory for the Kurdistan region, given the fact that there has not been any American casualties? The Kurdistan region is very safe, very secure, and also very American-friendly part of Iraq.
Well, I can go back to my initial remarks, one Iraq, two advisory policies, maybe, it's because really it's not Erbil, Duhok, Suleimania, Halabja, the Kurdistan region is completely different security-wise, stability-wise, friendly-wise. I don't think anywhere in the entire Middle East is more pro-American than the Kurdistan region. From the grassroots up, it's not a political decision. It's the kinds of the support so that's why we do believe that, and we should work together with the State Department. This one Iraq, two advisory policies for the travel advisories, I think it's the best answer for it.
Thank you very much. I completely agree with you. What makes Kurdistan so different is the people as well as the leadership that pro-American, unlike the other part of the Middle East where you have the leadership of people at the top are more pro-American, not the people. Thank you. So I'm going to open the floor for questions. So please introduce yourself and make sure that your question short and also precise. Thank you. If you have any questions, we usually have the mic is over there. You're welcome to go there and ask any questions.
I'm Siobhan. I'm a graduate student here. I'm originally from The Hague. So my question is, thank you so much for visiting us. My question is, what measures KRG is taking to make Rojava its new market for whatever product to help Kurdistan economy?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, what measures KRG taking to make Rojava as a new market for Kurdish products?
Well, as I said, we are in the process of the Kurdish unity in Rojava is very, very important to pave the way through better understanding, because there is a new situation in Damascus. And Kurdistan region has been always very supportive for the Kurdish people, not only the Kurdish people, for all the components in Rojava and in Syrian Kurdistan. We have received 250,000 refugees from Rojava into Kurdistan region, and there is a daily flow of things between Kurdistan region and Rojava, but really it depends on the political developments in Rojava. First, we have to make sure altogether that the security of Rojava will be protected through a mutual understanding, and that will be through the Kurdish unity and the relationship between the SDF and the Muslim Abdi with the Kurdistan National Council as well. And also providing job opportunities for a lot of people from Rojava that they are working. They are not IDPs or refugees, but they are just coming into Kurdistan region and working, and they are sending back a lot of remittance for Rojava. That will also help the economy in Rojava. But definitely with this new developments with Damascus, Kurdistan is always ready and open for that.
Hello, my name is Savara, and I'm a graduate student here at SIS within the GGPS program. Thank you so much for today's talk. My question is, earlier you mentioned the weaponization of the federal courts by Baghdad. Could you please explain on that?
Yeah. Well, according to the Iraqi constitution, Article 92 and 93, the federal court should be established and a law should be passed for this establishment of the federal court. And there are some general elements, general substance on how this court should be established, how many judges should be in the, and how many votes the federal court should get from the parliament, which is stipulated by 2/3 of it. But the current federal court that we have in Baghdad, it has not been formed based on those two articles of the constitution. The current federal court was formed out of a decision, it's called decision number 30 by the Coalition Provisional Authority in 2004, which was led at that time by Ambassador Bremer. So that's why up to this moment, that kinds of the formation of the federal court. When we say the weaponization of this federal court, if you look at all the decision of this federal court from 2019 upward, we find 15 of their decisions are anti-Kurdistan to check in the Kurds. And to be very frankly, I don't want to make party politics, but to check in the KDP because of so many issues. So that kinds of the weaponization, for example, who gave the power to the federal court to, for example, revoke a law which was passed in a legitimate parliament of the Kurdistan region? They don't have that in their capacity, their legislation. I remember also when I was the deputy speaker of parliament, we had some good relations with UNITAD, and we wanted to together to pass a draft, a law for establishing an international Kurdistan region special court for prosecution of the of those who are responsible for the crimes of ISIS. So it was a draft, and still we have not yet even put it in the floor for discussions. But the federal court in Baghdad decided to revoke that draft bill. They said the Kurdistan doesn't have that kinds of the authority to establish such kinds of the court in Kurdistan region. That was also a very big shock, because if you have the power to revoke a law which is against the constitution, it's okay, we understand, but this is just a draft. It has not been passed. It has not been established yet. And also when we had the parliamentary elections in Iraq, and there were an alliance between KDP, Halvusi, and Sadrist, which they were about to be the majority in Iraqi parliament. They made a decision, federal court, that the KDP's candidate for the presidency is not eligible to run. And that was only almost to prohibit this alliance to take over the presidency. So they revoked the Kurdistan's oil and hydrocarbon law, so many other decisions against the Kurdistan region. So Daiskan, there is a saying in Iraq, they say that the deep states in Baghdad, they have the federal court to check in the Kurds, they have part of the militia groups to check in the Sunnis. So the weaponization of the federal court and the militia groups. I wrote a detailed article on the federal court. It's in English. Later, I can you can provide it with them. You know, it's
on the Washington Institute.
Yes, it's a very long, detailed article about
website.
The illegalities and the unconstitutionalities of their decisions and the backgrounds with all the details that is needed.
Hello, my name is Giselle. I am a graduate student at the Geneva School of Diplomacy in Switzerland. I wanted to thank you, Dr. Yerevan, and you, Dr. Haromi, Your Excellency, for coming to speak to us today. One question that I have, and this semester I'm interning at the Religious Freedom Institute as the MENA region intern. So I'm focusing on Iraq on a lot of my research. And I wanted to ask you a question about funding and the rebuilding of Iraq, especially after ISIS. So one proposal that I see some scholars making is that instead of allowing the funding for the rebuilding of the northern region of Iraq to flow from the Nineveh governorate is that it should flow from Baghdad. If this were to be implemented, is this something you would have confidence in? Thank you.
Well, as far as we know that this is one of the issues that we have also between the Nineveh province and Baghdad, because rebuilding the Nineveh plain and also what has left, for example, it needed some kind of the stability and the security. And that's why we had this Sinjar agreement, which was also supported by UNAMI between the Kurdistan regional government and the Iraqi government. And it was supported by UNAMI and endorsed by all the embassies in Baghdad as well. But in order to allow these kinds of the funding to go for the rebuilding the Yazidi areas in Sinjar, in the Nineveh provinces, and also for the churches in Bashikan and the other places. But unfortunately, up to this moment that I'm talking to you, the militia groups are preventing the implementation of the Sinjar agreement. And the Iraqi government is just like a lame duck, not capable of doing anything toward these militia groups in Sinjar for the implementation of the Sinjar agreement that we have. So this is part of the issues that we have with the Iraqi government. And also, to be very honest and very open with you, we have some Christian militias that they are part of the PMF as well. And they have been very notorious for not allowing the other allied of the Shiite militias in those areas to be present and to provide them with the kinds of the funding that they needed. So this is one of the issues also that we are working on it, and from the Kurdistan region. And we do believe that without the implementation of the Sinjar agreement, allowing the people from the areas to be responsible for their own security, none of this funding is going to provide that kinds of the outcome that we all expect.
Thank you very much. I'm a Fulbright scholar from China in the American University. I want to ask you a question about the foreign investment in the Kurdistan area. That based on your speech before, I think the Kurdistan area is trying to get more autonomy from the central government. Do you think these contradictions because the foreign investment always goes to the more into the stability of the society? Do you think the contradictions will affect the willingness of the foreign investment for like China to invest in the future investment in the Kurdistan? Because you know what happened in the Syria, that the alternation of the administration is already affected like China's investment. Do you think this seems like?
Well, we have very good relation with China, and Chinese companies are very active in the Kurdistan region, and they have a lot of projects also, and they have planned also to increase those projects in Kurdistan region. But when we see that we want more investment in the Kurdistan area, that's not at the expense of not having that kinds of the investment in the other parts of Iraq. But we do believe that the investment law in Kurdistan region, the board of the investment that we have, is much more pro-business, pro-investing in the areas, and also different sectors that we have, and the transparency through this digitalizations and establishing banking system, especially during this, the cabinet under the leadership of Prime Minister Masroor Barzani has been really excellent initiative. But again, with more stability, more security in Kurdistan region, more business-friendly investment law that we have, more different sectors of investments and more opportunities, we do believe that Kurdistan is more open for that kind of investment. And China is expanding. Don't put us in the great power competition between China and the United States, but both Chinese and American investments are always most welcome in Kurdistan and Erbil. So.
Any more question?
Yes, thank you so much for your insights and a lot of information shared today. I will just ask in a very simple term. It is very clear from your talk that the Baghdad is extremely against towards Kurdistan and its people. Why do they hate Kurdistan and Kurdish people so much? Just because they are different people, just because they don't want to share the power? I can just Google, but I want to hear directly from you.
A very important question. If you look at Iraq's history, it's almost 100 years old, the current Iraqi government in the post-Ottoman Empire. And since then, this centralized mentality that everything should go through Baghdad, that Baghdad is like the center of the universe, that power should not be shared with anyone, and in Iraq, we have the Kurds and the Arabs, but when the Arabs, we have the Sunnis and the Shiites. To summarize it for you, when Iraq was established, it has been ruled by the Sunni minority until 2003. So they had the ultimate power in Iraq. And Kurds and the Shiites suffered a lot at the hands of this Sunni minority grasp of power for 100 years. And in 2003, when Saddam's regime was toppled, the Sunnis, they said, oh, we had 100% of power and we lost 80% of it. We don't accept it. We need also the next 20% of it. Okay, so they were afraid of future, the Sunnis, because they had completely the past. The Shiites, they were completely paranoid with their past because for the last 100 years, they had been oppressed by the series of the Sunnis through the Kingdom of Iraq, the Republicans, and different things. We, as the Kurds, we were afraid of the past, we are afraid of the present, and we are afraid of the future. Because the same mentality of centralization by recognized, so had Iraq been a democratic, open society based on citizenship and power sharing and consensus-based politics, we have had no problems with that. So it's not the Kurdistan's fault that we managed from 1991 to 2003 through this non-fly zone and the Kurdistan region, we managed to develop more in Kurdistan region than if you compare it with the other parts of Iraq. But part of it is this kinds of the mentality that comes through. Part of them, they think that they have the upper hand. They are the legitimate state, and who are this bunch of poor Kurds that they think that they can run their own issues. So, and that kind of the mentality has led to what? As I said, me and Gerivan, we are from Halabja, that our hometown was chemically bombarded because that mentality of mass extension of the people, we had more than 200,000 people, their fate is unaccounted for. It's called the Anfal campaign. 8,000 Barzanis, 8,000 male Barzanis were genocided and their fate is unaccounted for. In Kurdistan, we had 5,300 villages. 4,500 of them were completely razed to earth. That was during the Saddam's era and before that. Now, but in all of that era, they never ever cut the budget of Kurdistan people. In the last 15 years, many times the budget of Kurdistani people were cut from Baghdad. So it is another mass punishment toward Kurdistan region with different means and different tools. So as long as we don't change that mentality to look at Kurdistan region as part of your country, for example, to be very honest, I don't want but what makes me to feel I'm Iraqi right now? If you ask me, are you Iraqi first, or are you a Kurd first? Absolutely, I will tell you I'm a Kurd first. Because this identity of Iraqiness, what brought that identity for us? In order to be Iraqi, you have now to, in Baghdad, you have to be a Shiite Iraqi, Arab Iraqi, not a Kurdish Iraqi, because that identity doesn't bring that kinds of the equal rights as a citizens, as that has been stipulated in the constitution for you.
Any more question? Probably we have time for one more question. If not, one more question, mashallah.
Just one follow-up question. So how we get rid of this mentality with the federal people, not government?
Do you have any prescriptions? So definitely political participation and more democratization, the strength of civil society and more engagement through more public diplomacy, and through more international investment in developing institutions and make any kinds of support and aid to Iraq conditional on making sure that it goes to everywhere in Iraq. And it's a long process. I can't give you a panacea to say, oh, this is just take a paracetamol and your headache will go on. No, but definitely it needs a huge process. And that's why what we have been trying with this new constitution, we thought that the constitution will change that kind of the mentality. But definitely lack of good governance in Baghdad, lack of engagement with the Kurdistan region, and the personification of powerhouses in Baghdad, sectarianization of the powerhouses in Baghdad, it is complicating more that path toward recognizing Kurdistan as part of that. Okay, we're done.
Yeah, you have a question, Rewan? So Rewan is one of our Barzani fellows.
Okay.
So the part of the.
Hello, Kakim. My name is Rawan. I'm an SIS student here. My question is related to Iran, our neighbor. Iran is at a crossroads right now with Trump's administration. The maximum pressure campaign has restarted.
Yes.
The sanctions are going back in. And so we have a high volume of trade with Iran, and we have relations with Iran. What do you think the Kurdistan region positions will be in the next few years, at least counting 4 years? How can the KRG balance its relations with Iran, considering what will happen with US, whether they are going to reach an agreement regarding the nuclear issue, or how do you see this?
Yeah. Well, we have 300 kilometers border with Iran. That's geography, that's destiny. You can't choose your neighbor. We are not lucky like the United States to have Canada on our border, but at least we are not calling for Iran to be part of Iraq. Definitely, there is a long border, and we have Kurds in Iran. Actually, my grandparents are both from the Iranian part of Kurdistan, proudly, but since it's a border that was created, that's why. But we are the same people. Early on, our relationship with the United States has not been at the expense of relations with Iran, and our relation with Iran has not been at the expense of relations with the United States. Definitely when Halabja was chemically bombarded, it was only Iran campaigning and hosting the wounded people from that chemical bombardment, and saying that Iraqi regime has chemically bombarded the town, which is called Halabja. The entire international community was supporting Saddam regime at that time, and they were not recognizing this crime against humanity by the Iraqi regime. But definitely, we are not like the other parts of Iraq to implement whatever Iran dictates when it comes to the foreign policy of Iraq or the presence of the US forces. And that's why in so many instances, we went tick for tack with the Iranians when it came to Iraq's foreign policy, coalition presence in Iraq, and so many issues. So the Kurdistan relations with Iran economically, again, we are with the mutual respect. We are with stability in the areas, but we don't have that kinds of the impact to be that Kurdistan region is a tool for the maximum pressure on Iran. Iran and the United States relations is not that much through the Iraqi Kurdistan region, but definitely through Baghdad, yes. Through oil issue in the southern part of Iraq with the Iraqi government, yes. There are a lot of issues that the US maximum pressure on Iran, maybe through Baghdad and the other parts of Iraq, will be impactful on the Iranian presence in Iraq as well. And the land bridge that Iran had through Iraq to Syria, to the Mediterranean. Now Syria is cut off, and how Iran is using that kind of the land bridge, that's something else. But definitely, we in the Kurdistan region, we recognize our own international obligations toward the neighboring countries. And that's why we have not allowed the Kurdistan region to be used to destabilize the neighboring countries. But definitely we have refused, and we will refuse any request from Iran to use Kurdistan region against the United States or against the presence of the coalition forces or against the interest of Iraq in general.
Thank you, Dr. Hammond. I think it's a very, very good time and also point and optimistic outlook to end our conversation. That
Make Kurdistan great again, so.
The Kurdistan region will not be a part of anyone's engagement, which is really good. So thank you very, very much for your insights, for your time. I really appreciate that you took the time to come to American University. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for. Thank you.